So today we are gathered here mainly for the teaching. So inside we have monastics and also maybe sponsors and so forth. And outside, to the right side, we have students and other public. So Thai Sudo Rinpoche had requested me to give a full-fledged initiation, and also Je Rinpoche's Je Tsongkhapa's concise Lamrim. So His Holiness would like to start with the story. In Amdo region, in northeastern Tibet, there was a very good, great Lama. And he was old, and at a distant village, there was another monastery which invited him to give teachings. So he was given this invitation, and as an old man, he said, "I cannot come to give teachings." And then the people of the monastery said that, of course, the Lama is old now, so we don't mind, but if he could come to us to give us blessings, it would be good. And so the Lama accepted that invitation. And then he went to the monastery, and while he was there, he gave a very lengthy teaching. And at the end he said, "I'm not someone who puts his this suffering nature hand on someone's head to give liberation, but I'm someone who actually leads others to liberation through giving teachings, to lead others to enlightenment." So this is really true. The Buddha himself has said that the sages do not wash away the sins of sentient beings, nor do they remove suffering of sentient beings, nor do they shift their realization into others, but by giving the teaching of the truth, they liberate others. So to be frank, many people do not understand what Buddhism is. They only based on faith, themselves on faith, and not have any understanding of the teaching of the Buddha. And then the way they take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is as if they are actually seeking refuge in some creator God. So Buddhism does not believe in a creator God. Of course, if you were following the theistic religion, then of course we may be able to say everything is in your hands, God. But in Buddhism, Buddha has said that you are your own master, and Buddha himself was not a creator God as such. And so, as a Buddhist, if we were to accept a creator God, then the assertion of creator God has lots of logical fallacies from the Buddhist point of view. And so, from the point of view of Buddhism, there are a lot of logical inconsistencies in this assertion of a creator God. So Buddha has said that he cannot remove suffering our suffering, nor can he wash our sin. So, of course, when we have blessings with blessed water used in initiations and so forth, of course, these are done within the understanding that everything is like an illusion. And then, of course, through the power of mantra, concentration, and so forth, and motivation. And therefore, you need to have lots of different conditions gathered together for such a thing to work. Otherwise, these believing that water can wash away your sin and so forth are considered as wisdom going astray in Pramanavartika. And Buddha has said that he cannot transpose his own realization into others. Over 300 countless eons, the Buddha actually went through the practice of altruism for the benefit of all sentient beings. He intended in the beginning to become a Buddha, and therefore, how do Buddhas help others? Is by showing the truth of suchness, how things actually are, what is suffering, what is happiness, and what are the causes of these. And so the causes are your actions of body, speech, and mind. As long as your body, speech, and mind, the actions of these three are under the sway of influence of negative emotions, then your actions become negative. And negative emotions mainly come down to ignorance. And because of difference in their philosophical understanding of the view, therefore there are different ways of actually explaining or describing ignorance. And so ignorance is actually that state of mind which does not know the truth and the reality of things. And therefore, in order to eliminate this ignorance, we need to understand the truth, the reality, and therefore the Buddha shows that reality or truth and leads beings to liberation. And so I would like to give an explanation of the teaching of Buddha, and after that we'll do the initiation for longevity. And so this has come down through Rechungpa and so forth. So this is a long life initiation called Tsechik Pomjik, and I've received it from Tada Rinpoche. And so before doing the initiation and teachings, I need to do some preparation for that. And so it may take a few minutes, 10-15 minutes, and therefore the monks and nuns, as well as the lay people, and especially the school children. So please recite the Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha, this mantra of Amitayus. So the initiation of longevity is the initiation of Amitayus. And while saying the mantra, while reciting this mantra, everybody, you could also take your tea. And if your tea is hot, then you should also keep reciting the mantra until the tea is slightly cooled down so that you can take it. So please recite this mantra, Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha. So I'm just repeating it for you. Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha. 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 Amarana Jivinte Swaha. Amarana Jivinte Swaha. Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha. Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha. Om Amarana Jivinte Swaha. Amamarana Jivinde Swaha, Mamarana Jivinde So. Amamarana Jivinde Swaha, Mamarana Jivinde Swaha. Mamarana Jivinde Swaha, Mamarana Jivinde So. Mamarana Jivinde Swaha. Jimela, Tseba Megun Gozewa Tone, Jiva Bajobe, Chimerin Zinyo do Tobar Shore. So let us see the 7-line prayer, 7 limb prayer. Rebodhan Shabzo Demba, the worship of first prayer to the Buddha, to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of humans and to be tamed, and teacher of gods and humans. To you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, or Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. This prayer is said 3 times. To the founder, the Bhagavan, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of humans to be tamed, teacher of the gods and humans, to you, the completely, fully awakened one, the endowed, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. So when, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I'm supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean, like a golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best law, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable, the wise one, to you I prostrate. The savior, having great compassion, the founder, having all understanding, the filled of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one going to dustness, I prostrate. Tathagata, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. And then the prostrations with the Sangha, and then the homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to Dharma refuge, homage to great Sangha, to all 3 I ever devout homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform a perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. And through these merits may sentient beings attain the ranks of all-seeing, subdue the faults of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Next is the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was staying in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak along with the great community of monks and the great community of bodhisattvas, and at that time the Blessed One entered the meditative absorption on varieties of phenomena called the profound illumination. At that time as well, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, clearly beheld the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom itself as, and saw that even the 5 aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Thereupon, through the Buddha's inspiration, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and said, how should any noble son of the lineage who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom train? When this has been said, the holy Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, the great being, spoke to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any noble son or noble daughter who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should clearly see this way. They should see perfectly that even the 5 aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form too is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are emptiness. They are without defining characteristics. They are not born, they do not cease, they are not defiled, they are not undefiled, they are not deficient, and they are not complete. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no mental formation, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no mouth, no body, no mind. There is no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no texture, no mental objects. There is no eye element, and so on up to no mind element, including no mental consciousness elements. There is no ignorance, there is no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to no aging and death, no extinction extinction of aging and death, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, or path. There is no wisdom, no non-attainment, no attainment, even non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since bodhisattvas have no attainments, they rely on this perfection of wisdom and abide in it. Having no obscuration in their minds, they have no fear, and by going utterly beyond error, they will reach the end of nirvana. All the Buddhas who abide in the three times attain the fully awakened, full awakening of unexalted perfect enlightenment by relying on this profound perfection of wisdom. Therefore, one should know that the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unexalted mantra, the mantra unequal to the unequal, the mantra that quells all suffering, is true because it is not deceptive. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is broken. Tatyata gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhisattva Shariputra, the bodhisattva, the great being, should train in the perfection of wisdom in this way. Thereupon the Blessed One arose from that meditative absorption and commended the holy Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, saying, "It is excellent, 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 O noble child. It is just so. It should be just so. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have revealed. For then even the Tathagatas will rejoice as the Blessed One." And uttered these words, the Venerable Shariputra, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, great being, along with the entire assembly, including the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, Gandharvas, all rejoiced and hailed what the Blessed One had said. This is homage to the mother of all the Buddhas, the perfection of wisdom, which is ineffable, inconceivable, and beyond expression. This is homage to the mother of the Shravakas, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. These are the two verses from Madhyamaka Karika. Paying homage to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination free from the 8 extremes. And now we are making mandala offering in request for the teaching. May the great drum of Dharma dispel the suffering of sentient beings. And may the teachers remain for aeons to give teachings. So today I acted as the chant leader. So if there's an offering for the chant master, it should come to me. In the Pratimoksha Sutra, which we recite during the bi-monthly confession of the monks and nuns, so the teaching of the Buddha illuminates the world, just as the sun illuminates and leads beings to liberation. So just as sunlight opens the lotus, likewise the teaching of the Buddha, his enlightened deed of his speech, the light of it dispels the darkness of the world. And in the praise of Manjushri, Manjushri is praised as the dispeller of the darkness of the 3 planes of existence. So the Buddhas have a great body, physical body with all the major and minor marks, and also have great miracles. They can show miracles, but those alone cannot see the profundity and the extraordinariness of the Buddha. So there are what are known as 3 miracles the Buddhas perform, and the main miracle is through the miracle of their teaching. So through which they actually eliminate or dispel the darkness of ignorance within the sentient beings. And in order for that to happen, the Buddhas are said to have, as said in Abhisamaya Lamkara's verse of salutation, the Buddhas have unobstructed knowledge of everything in once in a single moment, because of having overcome all the obscurations or all the defilements. And so, because of that, the Buddhas are able to see the ultimate and conventional truths within one moment. And because of that, the Buddhas are able to give their teachings to dispel the darkness of sentient beings. So the Shakyamuni Buddha lived over nearly 2,600 years ago, and what he taught, especially the philosophical view, today, with regard to that, as people have people's interest in doing more research and analysis into things and reality have grown. And similarly, because of the development and progress in the instruments to check reality, and so in such an age, the philosophical teachings of the Buddha, and which concord also, in which accord with reality, are also becoming more clear. And so, the teaching of the Buddha becomes a teaching based on reason. The Buddha taught something which no other founding teachers have taught, which is, O bhikshu, O monks and scholars, just as gold is tested by rubbing, cutting, and burning, likewise you should examine my teaching and accept it, not because you have reverence to me. So there have been many founding teachers in India and other parts of the world, such as and then there are many followers of these founding teachers. So there may be over 1 billion Christians and also a similar number of Muslims, and also Hindu followers, like 5 million, 50 million or so. 500 million Hindus, and then other Buddhists also maybe form some 100 millions. Therefore, unlike other teachers, the Buddha has said that you should not you should believe in my teaching on blind faith, but check my teaching, examine it, investigate, and then if you find them in accord with reason, then you should do not. If they don't accord with reason, then you should reject them, and if they accord with reason, then you should accept it. So the other teachers have said that the followers, the disciples, should actually listen to them, pay heed to what they have said. And so the teaching of the Buddha must be dealt with through reason and logic. And of the two aspects of the teaching and practice, the method and wisdom is more important. And even with regard to the perfections, we use the term perfection of wisdom. And therefore, this shows the importance of using our reasoning part, critical reasoning faculty. And therefore, in the classic texts written by Indian masters, they go through the 4 points of the purpose and the goal and the subject matter and the relationship between these. And in Abhisamaya Lamkara's commentary called Sfutartha, clear meaning, it is said, mentioned, there are 2 types of disciples. One is the disciples or followers with dull faculty, and the other is the followers with bright faculty. And so what we need to check is what is, when you study a text, you should actually know what the subject matter is of that text, and also see the temporary purpose, why this teaching is given, for what purpose, for temporary goal, and then ultimate goal. And so these three are linked to one, first the earlier ones to the next. And so in this way we should actually check the teaching with reason, and not just say that, oh, I believe it because the Buddha has said so, and therefore we need to use reasoning power. So, of course, within the follower of the Sanskrit tradition, the Mahayana tradition, the great masters have actually differentiated within the teaching of the Buddha, categorized teachings into definitive and provisional ones. Whereas the Svaibhashikas and Swatantrikas following scripture may not have made this kind of categorization of the teaching of the Buddha, but the Swatantrika following reason and maybe they also make this kind of distinction between the provisional and definitive teaching of the Buddha. And of course, Cittamatras and Madhyamakas do that. So certain teachings which the Buddha gave because of certain reason and within certain circumstances are actually interpreted. And certain texts, like the scripture of the Buddha, which say that, which sort of indicate that there is a self. When the Buddha said that the five psychophysical aggregates are the burden, and a person actually carries on that burden. And then also the Buddha gave teachings where he said there is no external observed objects externally existing, whereas there is a perception which observes those objects. And so because of this, if you actually resort to the scriptures themselves, saying that, oh, we must believe so and so because these are teachings of the Buddha, then you would have to say that the Buddhism actually accepts Atman or soul theory, which is actually against the teaching of the Buddha, which is one of the main teachings of the Buddha is the selflessness, which is to say there is no independently existing self or a person as such, apart from the psychophysical aggregates. So we would go against that. So when you actually, with regard to the teaching of selflessness, you will see many different reasons to actually assert it. And these reasons actually get back to our direct perception and experience as well. And so when you check it with your own experience and use analysis to check the teaching of the Buddha, the more you actually investigate into the teaching, you'll find that they are true, and you'll gain more and more certainty, and there's no logical inconsistencies. So, with regards to the teaching of the Buddha, if we have to make this kind of distinction between provisional and interpretive or definitive teachings, then just resorting to the scripture themselves will not get us anywhere. But therefore, we need to resort to reason and logic to actually see the truth of the teaching of the Buddha, to see what is provisional and what is definitive teaching of the Buddha. And therefore, as the quote I quoted earlier, the teaching of the Buddha, the speech of the Buddha, the enlightened deed of the speech of the Buddha, it dispels the darkness of sentient beings. And so, not through miracles, but through teaching. And so, with regard to translation of Buddha's words, into Tibetan, we have over 100 volumes in the traditional Tibetan Pechas format. And then also we have in the Tengyur collection, which are the commentaries written by Indian masters, we have over 220 volumes of Tengyur in our Tibetan translation. Of course, other religions also are beneficial and helpful to their followers, such as Christianity. They do not have much like Bible or Quran, may have rules, laid down rules to punish criminals and so forth, but there's not deep philosophical kind of explanation in them as such. And then the Samkhya school of Hinduism mentions a primal factor and also a conscious self which experiences pain and pleasure. When you look into these kind of philosophical explanations of the Sankhya school, we can see how deep they are. And also with regard to logic and epistemology, we find the quite detailed, dealt with in quite detail in the Indian philosophical systems. Even today we have non-Buddhist practitioners developing who cultivate single-pointed concentration so that they are able to actually suppress the active kind of desire and attachment to the desire ram, pleasures of the desire ram in India. And so amongst the Indian schools of thoughts, we have Buddhism. We say that Buddha turned the wheel of the Dharma 3 times. So the first wheel of the Dharma, which was turned in public, is the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. So the turning of the wheel of the Dharma, Four Noble Truths. And then all the teaching of the Buddha are actually collected into the 3 Pitaka, the 3 baskets, which in turn deal with what are known as the 3 trainings. The training of morality, concentration, and wisdom. And then there are the practices of the 37 harmonies to enlightenment as well, which all of these are common to both the Sanskrit and Pali traditions. Then, with regard to the Sanskrit teachings, like the perfection of wisdom teachings, such as the Heart Sutra and so forth, these were not taught in public, in general public, but they were. They also mention amongst the audience of the Buddha, such as gods, Asuras, Gandharvas, deities, So, in the case of Heart Sutra, for example, we find mention of dialogue. I mean, we find Shariputra actually having a dialogue with Avalokiteshvara. So, for someone, I usually tell this story that if someone were there who cannot actually have access to see, we cannot actually see the Avalokiteshvara as such, that these bodhisattvas will not actually be able to see that Shariputra is actually having dialogue with Avalokiteshvara. And so for those beings with pure karma, they will be able to see these bodhisattvas in the audience of the Buddha when he was giving Patiparamita Sutras and teaching the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Whereas for someone without any pure karma, to see these bodhisattvas, they would actually see Shariputra just talking to himself. And so, for such a person with impure karma, what may actually happen, what could actually happen is that they will see the Buddha just sitting there in absorbed in meditation while Shariputra was talking to himself. And therefore, we can see that these teachings of the Mahayana, such as the perfection of wisdom teachings, were not taught in public, and therefore there was a qualm from others that the such teachings were not given by the Buddha. There were in the past such people, and even today we have amongst Chinese and also the Pali tradition, upholders of Pali tradition. There are people who say that Mahayana was not actually given teaching of the Buddha. Therefore, Master Nagarjuna and particularly have actually Master Nagarjuna and particularly Bhaviveka in his Madhyamaka Sridaya, the essence of Madhyamaka and its commentary, deals with this issue. And they have actually argued for Mahayana being the teaching of the Buddha. And also we have Suttaralamkara and Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya Avatara arguing for that. And these are because of the teaching of Mahayana not having been given in public, and therefore they didn't come in historical records, popular historical records. So the Buddha gave the full teaching on the Four Noble Truths, and also the teachings on the 12 links of dependent origination. And we can see the Abhidhamma Kosha and Abhidhamma Samuchaya, which differs slightly in their presentation of cosmology and so forth. So the first sermon of the Buddha was given in Sarnath, Varanasi. At that time, it seems Varanasi was seen as a center of learning, where learned people are produced and live in that place. And then, as the Buddhist institutions were started, then there were Takshashila and Nalanda and Vikramalishil being established in India. And the most important institution of these three is Nalanda. And so we have great masters coming from this institution, such as Master Nagarjuna and his spiritual disciple sons. And so these masters were the crown or the top scholars of Nalanda. It's not just that we say, oh, they are top scholars, but if we look at their own writings, we'll see them, the truth. So he wrote, Master Nagarjuna, for example, wrote the Sutta Samuchaya, compendium of sutras, and also mainly his 6 texts of reasoning, such as Mula Madhyamaka Karika, fundamental treatise of the middle way. And then his disciples like Buddha Palita and Chandrakirti wrote their commentaries to this text, Mula Madhyamaka Karika. And teachings or texts written by Asanga and his younger brother Vasubandhu, of course, also wrote great treatises, but the Madhyamaka masters' texts are more profound. And the Madhyamaka masters, like Nagarjuna and so forth, mainly commented on the teaching of emptiness, the wisdom side, whereas the Asanga and his younger brother and their followers focused on the skillful means or method aspect of the practice. And then We have Master Chandarakshita, who was invited to Tibet in the 8th century by Tibetan emperor, and he wrote the Tatup Samgraha, and his disciple Kamalashila wrote the Tatup Samgraha Panjika, difficult commentary on the difficult points of his master's text. And so we can see how great these masters are if we read these texts. And then the Tibetan masters also wrote the commentaries to Indian treatises. And Tibetan masters were really have great merit and great wisdom and also great courage for inviting Tibetan Indian masters to Tibet. So, of course, Buddhism was kind of started during the time of the Tibetan Emperor Songtsen Gampo, who married a Nepalese princess and also a Chinese princess. And because of these marriages, they brought the Buddha statues to Tibet from their countries. And so there was some connection with Buddhism already. Whereas in the 8th century, mainly the Tibetan masters, although they already had this family connection with the China and Nepal, they actually looked to India for actually bringing Buddhism to Tibet. And therefore, Master Chandarakshita was invited to Tibet in the 8th century, and he was a top scholar. So we can see this from the fact that he actually founded his own sub-school of Madhyamaka, the middle way school, philosophical school, which is the Yogacara Madhyamaka school. Whereas Bhaviveka before him had founded the Sutrantika, Savatantrika Madhyamaka, sub-school of Madhyamaka. So Bhaviveka's school actually asserted external existence of external phenomena, external things, whereas Chandarakshita's school actually rejected externality of things. And therefore, he founded his own sub-school of Madhyamaka, which is not easy to do, especially amongst the great Madhyamaka masters. So he found this separate Madhyamaka sub-school of Yogacara Savatantrika Madhyamaka school. So when he was invited to Tibet, it is said that some Indian historians say that he was already into his 70s. One Indian scholar has told me that Tibetans say that Chandarakshita lived 900 years, but actually he lived 90. But because Tibetans like exaggeration, they actually added an extra 0 to 90 and made it 900. So what we can actually do to verify the truth about his age, in Samye in Tibet, there is a body part of Chandarakshita still preserved. During the Cultural Revolution, of course, Samye Monastery was destroyed, but some family actually was able to keep remain of Chandarakshita's skull. And so if we can actually do carbon dating or some forensic kind of analysis into his this, we may be able to find his age. So otherwise, we would, if we just insist that, or some people insist that he lived 900 years and others say that he lived 90, it's just, I mean, we may just go about with that kind of stuff, but with regard to even the age of the Buddha, when he lived, according to Sajja Pandita, we would say that he lived over 3,000 years ago. Panchen Shakya Shri, who came to Tibet from Kashmiri Pandita, so according to his calculation, the Buddha lived around 2,500 years, which is similar to what the Theravada tradition says these days. In Afghanistan, the ones that was in the newspaper, some miners actually, when they dug land, they actually found a remain of a Buddhist temple, and inside the temple were the statues of Tara. And so when they actually checked the date of those objects, they found that they were 2,600 years old, over 2,600 years old. And so, with regard to the philosophical teaching of the Buddha, we can still find them to be, we can actually verify the truth of the teaching. So what we cannot accept these days is what is presented in Abhidhammakosha about cosmology. Such as mentioning that there is Mount Meru in the center of the universe. So actually, if Mount Meru were existent, then we would have to be able to see it. Whereas when we cannot see the Mount Meru, we could actually say it does not exist, because it's something which is perceptible if it exists. So the Mount Meru is said to be 40,000 leagues or yojanas above sea level, and 40,000 leagues or yojanas underneath the water. And so today, and then the distance from the Earth, of the Moon and the Sun, are said to be almost at a similar, same height, according to Abhidhammakosha. But because of the distance of the Moon being very far from the Earth, we are not able to see its sides, correct sides, with our eyes. Whereas the sides of the Moon and the Sun, according to Abhidhammakosha, there is only a difference of 1 yojana. It says the Sun is bigger than the Moon only by 1 yojana. But I usually say that Master Vasubandhu, when he wrote Abhidhammakosha, must have been quite old, and he just looked up in the sky and saw the Moon and the Sun only having a small difference, and therefore he must have mentioned that there is only a difference of 1 yojana in the sides of these Moon and sides. But we cannot actually assert, or we cannot accept this. If we say that if someone were to assert some thesis which goes against reason, is not right, then how can we actually accept something which can be seen, perceived by our senses? And so with regard to cosmology, what is mentioned in Abhidhammakosha is also found in Hindu texts as well. So Abhidhammakosha says, from karma arises varieties of the world. So from Buddhist point of view, and Abhidhamma says from karma arises the varieties of world. And in non-Buddhist texts, it is said varieties of world actually emerged from Brahma. So there are even very similar wordings, and so this is possible. That what is mentioned in Abhidhammakosha and this is actually following what was known in those days. So certain texts, like the 7 treatises of Abhidharma, are, are said to be written by different arahats. And so certain features that we find in the treatises, great treatises, are just written by following what was known at the time in India, and not because they are caught with reality as such. So Master Shantirakshita came to Tibet. So Buddhism spread in India, and then later Shantirakshita came to Tibet, and he actually first tested Tibetans whether they can actually keep the monastic lineage of monastic ordination or not. And so first 7 Tibetan children were given novice ordination by him, just to test how the Tibetans would actually do if they were given a monastic ordination. So Master Shantirakshita was pleased with how Tibetans kept their precepts, and therefore he went on with the higher ordination of the monks. But with regard to bhikshuni ordination for female, because of the place in Tibet, it was not possible to give, because Mulasarvastivada tradition actually needs a bhikshuni to actually give a bhikshuni ordination. There must be a bhikshuni who is qualified to give the ordination. So there were cases when some Tibetans were ordained, given the bhikshuni ordination. And so this bhikshuni ordination actually spread all over Tibet. And we have been able to produce people who upheld the 3 types of vows: pratimoksha, the Vinaya vow and the precepts, and also Bodhisattva and Tantric. And so this is to give you a historical background to Buddhism in Tibet. Now we are in the 21st century, and we are also living in exile. For the last 56 years we have been in exile. As I said briefly yesterday, we come across many people and have contact with different people from different traditions, and therefore what we are able to see is that because of having kept intact the Nalanda tradition of knowledge and the different texts which we study by memorizing the root texts, and also listening to the commentaries, word by word commentary, and also do a critical analysis into these teachings. So if you look at the Nalanda text, the text written by Nalanda masters, what they go through are the rejection of others' position, and refutation of others' position, and then establishing one's own position, and then also rebuttal of the others' criticism to one's position. So this is how they have written. And so such a tradition we have kept intact with us in Tibet, and therefore this knowledge which we have kept through education is something now which we can use to contribute to help the world. Not only Buddhists, but the world, the entire world. And so, first of all, we are all humans. And today, there are 7 billion human beings. And we, as humans, are social animals. And therefore, for our survival, we need to rely and depend on the society, the community. And because of that, as we say in our Bodhisattva ideal and practice, that we need to serve others, help others. And therefore, we can use the same teaching to serve humanity. So we, as Tibetan refugees, live in India, are able to survive in India, and India is dependent on the rest of the world. So in the past, in ancient times, of course, India may have been able to live, may have tried to live separately from others. And this was the case even with China. And so therefore, since this was no more feasible to live by one's self, Deng Xiaoping came up with the open door policy and therefore reached out to the world. And today is dependent on West, West on the East, and North on the South, and South on the North. And therefore, as we usually say, all sentient beings, to benefit all sentient beings. So from the quantum physics point of view, we are connected to them because of the light and even the sun and the moon and stars have some connection to us, gotten through astrophysicists and so forth, astronomy. So although these objects, the heavenly objects, are very far from us, but at the subatomic particles and at the level of light waves, everything is connected. And therefore, in the Mahayana teachings, Mahayana scriptures, as is mentioned, that we need to think about all sentient beings, and therefore these become relevant as well from a scientific point of view as well. So first of all, on this earth we are 7 billion people, therefore we must take some responsibility for 7 billion humans. So not just make aspirations and prayers, but actually see what practically can we do to serve humanity. Not on this, of course, cannot be approached only from a religious point of view, but from a psychological point of view, we can see we should find what contribution we can make as. So that's because of the we should actually deal with others as human beings on the first level. So many of the problems we face in the world are created by us. No one wants suffering, but wants happiness. But why? why do all this suffering happen? It's because of our mind not being disciplined. So, without actually talking about nirvana, enlightenment, and heaven, and so forth, but if we could actually develop and cultivate compassion, love towards the humanity on this earth, and which we can actually achieve. So 100 years ago, for example, many part of the world and people in many parts of the world remained quite uneducated, illiterate. But today, after 100 years, we can see education has spread everywhere, and we as Tibetan exiles, we have set up schools in different parts of India. We can see actually in India, for example, everywhere we go, we can see small children even carrying their school bags and going to school. But the existing modern education actually has been focused on material development and progress alone. So we are in the beginning of the 21st century, and by the end of this century, if we could actually make people aware of the need for the change, shift in the educational system, not just focusing on material values, but also internal inner values, then of course we can actually work towards that. And so this is on the basis of being humans that we should actually have this kind of attitude and motivation to work for humanity as a whole. And then we need to have religious harmony amongst the world religions. Whereas religions are meant for cultivating and actually promoting love and compassion, there are people who use religion for creating suffering. In the past, of course, religions have actually talked about one religion, one truth, but today the reality has changed, and we have come to accept multiple religions and multiple realities. And as Tibetans, we need also to be harmonious with one another, and to have not to. So today there are people who kill each other in the name of religion, which is really unfortunate and sad. So in Tibet, there were cases when the Gagyus and Nyingma and Gelug have actually fought battles against one another, and even killed people. So of course these were past events. And then after coming into exile, we became more harmonious. The different religious traditions, Buddhist traditions of Tibet have become more harmonious with one another. And so the different traditions, Nyingma, Sajya, Kagyu, Gelug and Chonang, as well as Bön tradition, the indigenous Tibetan religion, have become more harmonious with each other. In the beginning, when Buddhism actually was brought to Tibet during the time of the Songtsen Gampo, Emperor Songtsen Gampo, there was some rift between the Bönpos and Buddhists. So it is it's good that we are becoming more and more friendly and closer to each other, the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. And we And then there are gatherings of the scholars of the different Buddhist traditions and Burmbos together and discussing about our traditions. So when we have such gatherings of discussion among scholars, we would be able to become closer by actually understanding the other tradition better. So many of the past masters of all the different traditions became non-sectarian, such as Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and so forth. And my own teacher, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, also was non-sectarian. And similarly, there are many lamas who followed non-sectarian tradition system. And Trishik Rinpoche also, one of my teachers, was a great non-sectarian master and a great upholder of the Vinaya, the monastic tradition. And so we need to promote non-sectarianism amongst us, which is very important. And we are Buddhists and Tibetans. And Tibetans, so with regard to Tibet, Tibetan civilization, according to some Stone Age artifacts that were actually dug out, Tibetan civilization is about 10,000, and certain things which were dug out from in the Amdo region of Tibet, northeastern part of Tibet, actually showed that the Stone Age implements were 20,000 years. So this shows that Tibetan civilization is one of the old civilizations of the world. And then we have our own writing script, which is very old as well. And today, this language and this script that we have has become a language and script which can actually explain the Nalanda tradition thoroughly. And not other languages can do that, not English or other languages. So with regard to the explanation of the philosophical views, Tibetan language is the language which can explain it thoroughly, precisely. And so, from the point of view of preservation of the Dharma, Tibetan is important, and as people, Tibetans, we also need to see the importance of preserving our language. And then, since there are many school children here, if we compare Tibetan script with other letters of the world, we have a letter, an alphabet, and also vowels which are modeled on some Indian script as well, and it's a separate script. So we have a unique script. And then with regard to the Kanjur and Tenjur literature, usually we say, when we go to some temples, we can see the scripture actually stacked up in some cabinets, and we just kind of pay our respect to them. But we should not do this. What we need to do is actually make these texts for as our textbooks for study. Because what we are looking for is overcoming the darkness of ignorance within us, and that has to be done through actually gaining more knowledge. And therefore, we need to actually open these texts and study them. We cannot just touch the scripture on our head and say, may I actually understand this text? May I understand this text? That will not actually make us understand the text. But we need actually to read and reflect on the meaning and also compare these different texts and then learn. And so I usually make three categories in with the content of the scriptures. The first is science, then philosophy, and then religion. And so the first two categories can actually be used as academic subjects for the world to learn. And then with regard to Buddhist religion, that is only meant for Buddhists. And therefore, if we can actually make these three and make the content of the conjure and danger in these three categories, then we can see how we can actually use the science and the philosophy parts as academic subjects for the entire world. So we have actually published books relating to dealing with the science aspect of this literature, two-volume books. So if you take interest, it will be beneficial to study these. Your way of thinking would be broader for your life, and the broader your way of thinking, it will make a difference to actually face challenges in life. Whenever you face challenges, if you are narrow-minded, then either you become completely disturbed, or you will resort to some other means. But with your wisdom, as you gain more wisdom and knowledge and become broad-minded, you'll be able to deal with challenges better. So a lot of time has gone by. So, to summarize the content of the Kanjur and Tenjur, Master Atisha wrote The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment after coming to in Tibet. So when it comes to actually applying the teaching, after understanding the basis, the path, and the fruits, and how to go about with actually the process of transforming your mind, you need to actually go through the different rungs. Even if you want to go to the top rung of a ladder, you need to actually start with the first and go upwards. So the Buddha also gave teachings on the Four Noble Truths and also gave the 16 four attributes each of the Four Noble Truths. And so he gave these teachings. And then there is the four seals of the Dharma, which begins with teaching on impermanence, which is also the impermanence is also the one of the attributes of suffering, the first noble truth. And so we need to actually make some progress from an ordinary level, from where we are. We should actually progress upwards. Just as when we go to schools, we actually go through kindergarten and then to grade 1, 2, and so forth. And therefore, similarly, with regard to the practice of the Dharma, we should go about with following the sequence. So Master Atisha has written this text for that reason, and I received this teaching on this when I was very young. And so the text starts by saying in the Indian language, Bodhipatha Paradipam, and in Tibetan language, Angju Lamgit Dharma, which translates as the path for and the lamp for the path to enlightenment. So the title, Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, actually shows what kind of subject matter this text touches on. With regard to enlightenment, or Tibetan word Changchup. In Tibetan, Changchup, which is a translation of Bodhi in Sanskrit, which has the connotation of dispelling darkness and also opening, blossoming of a lotus. And so when this term Bodhi in Sanskrit was translated into Tibetan, the Tibetan translators come up with these two words, Jang Chup. Jang meaning purifying negativities, and having purified the faults or shortcomings, you gain knowledge, which has the connotation of expanding one's wisdom. So with regard to Changchup, there are Changchup or enlightenment of the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Mahayana enlightenment. So here this word particularly refers to the Mahayana enlightenment. And because the path shown in this text leads to that goal of enlightenment, it says the path to enlightenment, and then the lamp refers to the fact that it helps to dispel the darkness of ignorance within us and also gain knowledge. And therefore, it's like a lamp that illuminates the dark or dispels darkness and lights the room. And the first verse is a homage. It pays homage to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So with regard to the sequence Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, why do we have these sequences? First of all, we have to have a Buddha who gives the teaching, and that teaching is when it's applied within us. What happens is we gain knowledge and realization, and therefore the causal refuge of a Buddha comes first, and then he gives teaching, and then the realizations and experiences happen in us. When we as individuals go along the path, we actually apply the teaching within ourselves, and then we reach the path of accumulation, and then go on to path of preparation. And then when we are able to see the truth of the teaching, the emptiness directly, then we become a Sangha. We actually experience the true Dharma within us, which actually makes us a qualified Sangha. And so, Dharma comprises of true path and true cessation. And once you gain the true path and true cessation within yourself, you become a Sangha, and then you progress along the path and reach enlightenment, whether it's an enlightenment of the Shravakas or Pratyeka Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas. Then within the Mahayana Sangha, we have the 10 Bodhisattva grounds before reaching Buddhahood, which is the final ultimate goal of the Mahayana path. And so it says, I pay homage with great respect to all the victorious ones of the three times, the Buddhas, to their teaching, and those who aspire to virtue, means Sangha. Urged by the good disciple Changchupo, I shall illuminate the lamp for the path to enlightenment. Understand that there are three kinds of persons because of their small, middle, and small capacities, supreme capacities. I shall write clearly in distinguishing their individual characteristics. Know that those who, by whatever means, seek for themselves no more than the pleasure of existence, cyclic existence, are persons of least capacity. So with regard to the Buddhism, the teaching of the Buddha, it is meant for achieving happiness, which can be temporary up to the ultimate happiness, which is Buddhahood. Master Nagarjuna goes through in Ratnavali, deals with the practices leading to higher rebirth as humans and gods, or and the highest enlightenment. Now, in order to reach as enlightenment, and we need wisdom and intelligence, which as humans we are equipped with, and in such a birth as humans. And therefore, in order to reach enlightenment, we need to actually gain a higher rebirth. And Aryadeva says that we need first, with regard to practice, we need to avoid negative actions or non-meritorious actions. And so the text goes on to say, those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning their back on worldly pleasures, are avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. So here, the middling capacity beings of middling capacity are those who aspire to liberation, not just higher rebirth as such. The beings of small capacity actually look for higher rebirth in the next existence. As long as we have this kind of psychophysical aggregates which come from our destructive emotions and karma, we need to see that there is suffering, and all sentient beings are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, and therefore we should extend our compassion to those, to the rest of the sentient beings. And therefore the great beings or persons of supreme capacity are those who, through their personal suffering, truly want to end completely all the suffering of others. And then Dakpo Targin, written by Gampopa, actually goes through the Buddha nature and then also touches on these different practices. So these were written after following the teaching of the Kadam tradition, within which there is the Kadam Mengakpa or pith instruction lineage. Most of the Lamrim teachings are written from the point of view of Kadam Mengakpa. And then there are those written from the point of view of Kadam Lamrimpa. And most important to understand is to follow the tradition of what are known as Kadam Shungpawa, or scholastic tradition of Kadam traditions, which started with Atisha and his disciple Drumtamba. And so these Lamrim teachings are actually have their source in Abhisamaya Alamkara by Maitreya. And so scholastic tradition of Kadam lineage actually deal with, or they focus on the subject matter in which is touched in Abhisamaya Alamkara, called instructions, which go through the teaching of the two truths, conventional ultimate truth, and on the basis of that, then you go into the understanding and called explanation of the Four Noble Truths, and on the basis of that, then you explain the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so this is how the Kadam Shungpawa, the scholastic tradition, actually dealt with the teaching of the Buddha. So for students of the Dharma, it really would be helpful to really move you, inspire you hugely, and with regard to the teaching of the Buddha and its practice. Otherwise, without knowing what nirvana means and what the Four Noble Truths are, then just saying you are a Buddhist would just mean not much. Of course, there are people who may not have such an intellect to go through extensive teachings, but we have to know that the Buddha Dharma actually is a teaching which is meant for beings with higher intellect. Kadam in pith instruction lineage is not enough. So with regards to cultivation of bodhicitta, this altruistic intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, there are two systems or traditions. One is the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, and the other is equaling and exchanging self and others. And this second one, for the second one, there's no greater text than the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara by Shantideva. So once you gain some experience of bodhicitta, this altruistic intention, then you actually make a determination to keep the aspiring bodhicitta. And so for those excellent living beings who desire supreme enlightenment, I shall explain the perfect method taught by the spiritual teachers, facing patients, paintings, statues, and so forth, of the completely enlightened one, reliquaries and excellent teaching, offer flowers, incense, whatever you have, with a 7-part offering from the prayer of noble conduct, and with the thought never to turn back till you gain ultimate enlightenment. With strong faith in the three jewels, kneeling with one knee on the ground, and your hands pressed together, first of all take refuge 3 times. Next, beginning with an attitude of love for all living creatures, consider beings, excluding none, suffering in the 3 births, suffering, birth, death, and so forth. Then, since you want to free these beings from the suffering of pain, from suffering and cause of suffering, arouse immutably the resolve to attain enlightenment. The qualities of developing such an aspiration are fully explained by Maitreya in the Array of Trunks Sutra. Having learned about infinite benefits of the intention to gain full enlightenment by reading this sutra or listening to a teacher, arouse it repeatedly to make it steadfast. The sutra requested by Viradatta fully explains the merit therein. At this point, in summary, I will cite just 3 verses. If it possessed physical form, the merit of altruistic intention would completely fill the whole space and exceed even that. If someone were to fill it with jewels, as many Buddha fills as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, to offer to the protectors of the world, this would be surpassed by the gift of folding one's hands and inclining one's mind to enlightenment, for such as is limitless. Having developed the aspiration for enlightenment constantly, and hence enhance it thoroughly through concerted effort to remember it in this and also in other lives, keep the precepts properly as explained. And then, so that was about keeping the aspirational bodhicitta, and the next is cultivating the engaging bodhicitta. Without the vow of engaged intention, perfect aspiration will not grow. Make effort definitely to take it, since you want the wish for enlightenment to grow. Those who maintain any of the 7 kinds of individual liberation vow, having the ideal prerequisite for the bodhisattva vows, no other. So from this moment onwards, until I attain enlightenment, I shall not harbor harmful thoughts, anger, avarice, or envy. I shall cultivate pure contact by giving up wrongdoing and desire, and with joy in the vow of discipline train myself to follow the Buddhas. I shall not be eager to reach enlightenment in the quickest way, but shall stay behind till the very end, for the sake of a single being. I shall purify limitless inconceivable lands and remain in the 10 directions for those who call my name. I shall purify all my bodily and my verbal forms of activity. My mental activities too I shall purify, and do nothing that is non-virtuous. So with regard to the 3 types of vows or morality of bodhisattvas, when those observing the vow of the active intention have trained well in these in 3 forms of discipline, their respect for these 3 forms of discipline grows, which causes purity of body, speech, and mind. Therefore, through effort in the vow made by bodhisattvas for pure, full enlightenment, the collections of complete enlightenment will be thoroughly accomplished. And in order to reach the enlightenment, we need to cultivate both merit and wisdom. And so, merit is for the physical form of Buddha, and wisdom for the wisdom of the Buddha. Or what this shows is the compatibility between the cause and its effects. Asanga mentions unwavering condition, impermanent condition, and the potential condition, which shows that we need, in order to have some fruit, we need to have the concordant cause. Because we aspire to full enlightenment, we need also to cultivate the full total absorption in emptiness. And as Buddhas perform miracles. So His Holiness has jumped some verses. So he says sorry. So once some person who was reading some scripture actually skipped some pages. So I also did something like that. Those who maintain any of the 7 kinds of individual liberation vow have the ideal prerequisite for the bodhisattva vows, not others. So of the Patimoksha vows, to those who wish to keep the bodhisattva vows, the best basis, physical basis, is someone with a full vow of a bhikshu. And the Tathagata spoke of 7 kinds of individual liberation vow. The best of these is the glorious pure contact, said to be the vow of a fully ordained person. According to the ritual described in the chapter on discipline in the bodhisattva stages, take the vow from a good and well-qualified spiritual teacher. This could be a reference to the Bodhisattva Bhumi's chapter on morality, bodhisattva vows, and understand that a good spiritual teacher is one skilled in the vow ceremony, who lives by the vows and has the confidence and compassion to bestow it. However, in case you try but cannot find such a spiritual teacher, I shall explain another correct procedure to take for taking the vows. I shall write here very clearly, explained in the ornament of Manjushri's Buddha Land Sutra, how long ago, when Manjushri was Ambaraja, he aroused the intention to become enlightened. So you can also take the bodhisattva vows sitting in front of the image of Buddhas. In the presence of protectors, I arouse the intention to gain full enlightenment. I invite all beings as my guests and shall free them from cyclic existence. So what we need to cultivate are bodhicitta, and then with the help of it also realize emptiness. And in order for us to be able to see emptiness directly at the path of seeing, we need bodhicitta in order to gain merit. And so the greater your practice of morality and so forth, you have greater merit. So all Buddhas say the cause for the completion of collections, whose nature is merit and exalted wisdom, is the development of higher perceptions. Just as a bird with undeveloped wings cannot fly in the sky, those without the power of higher perception cannot work for the good of living beings. Higher perceptions meaning clairvoyance, I think. The merit gained in a single day by one who possesses higher perception cannot be gained even in 100 lifetimes by one without such higher perception. And those who want swiftly to complete the collections of full enlightenment will accomplish higher perception through effort, not through laziness. Without attainment of calm abiding, higher perception will not occur. Therefore, make repeated effort to accomplish calm abiding. And so here we're talking about single-pointed concentration. Developing single-pointed concentration can be done by focusing on any object, such as a piece of wood or statues and so forth. So of all the different kinds of focus that you can use to cultivate single-pointed concentration, whichever is more convenient to you to focus your mind on, while the conditions for calm abiding are incomplete, meditative stabilization will not be accomplished, even if one meditates strenuously for thousands of years. Thus, maintaining well the conditions mentioned in the collection for meditative stabilization chapter, place the mind on any one virtuous focal object. When the practitioner has gained calm abiding, higher perceptions will also be gained. But without practice of the perfection of wisdom, the obstructions will not come to an end. Thus, to eliminate all obstructions to liberation and omniscience, the practitioners should continually cultivate the perfection of wisdom with skillful means. Wisdom without skillful means and skillful means without wisdom are referred to as bondage. Therefore, do not give up either. To eliminate doubt concerning what is wisdom and what is skillful means, I shall make clear the difference between skillful means and wisdom. Apart from the perfection of wisdom, all virtuous practices such as the perfection of giving are described as skillful means by the victorious ones. Whoever, under the influence of familiarity with skillful means, cultivates wisdom will quickly attain enlightenment, not just by meditating on selflessness. So in the Heart Sutra, we mention there's no form, no sound, and so forth, which are meant for the insight into emptiness. So understand emptiness of inherent existence through realization of aggregates, constituents, and the sources are not produced as described as wisdom. Something existent cannot be produced, nor something existent like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. A thing is not produced from itself, nor from another, also not from both, nor causelessly either. Thus it does not exist inherently by way of its own entity. So these are giving the different reasonings to establish emptiness. Such as the diamond splinter reasoning mentioned in this verse, and then the next one goes through the reasoning called lack of one and many. Now, moreover, when all phenomena are examined as to whether they are one or many, they are not seen to exist by way of their own entity, and thus are ascertained as not inherently existent. The reasonings of the 70 stanzas of emptiness, the treatise on the middle way, and so forth explain that the nature of all things is established as emptiness. Since there are great many passages, I have not cited them here, but have explained just their conclusions for the purpose of meditation. Thus, whatever is meditation on selflessness, by not observing an inherent nature in phenomena, is the cultivation of wisdom. Just as wisdom does not see an inherent nature in phenomena, having analyzed wisdom itself by reasoning, meditate on that non conceptually. So, having studied the texts on which actually explain emptiness, and then what you should do is reflect on what you have studied in contemplation, and then finally apply those understanding and conviction in meditation. And the nature of this worldly existence, which has come to from conceptualization, is conceptuality. Thus, the elimination of conceptuality is the highest state of nirvana. So, by progressing along the path of accumulation, path of preparation, and then the path of seeing onwards, from the path of seeing onwards, what you go through are the 10 bodhisattva grounds. And from the 8th grounds onwards, you, as bodhisattvas, what you go through is the purification or elimination of the obscuration to knowledge. And before that, you eliminate the negative emotions. Therefore, the Sabjo also has said that the great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence, resting in non-conceptual stabilization. Space like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. The retention of mantra engaging in non-conceptual realization says that when bodhisattvas non-conceptually contemplate this excellent teaching, they will transcend conceptuality, so hard to overcome, and even eventually reach the non-conceptual state. Having ascertained through scripture and through reasoning that phenomena are not produced nor inherently exist, meditate without conceptuality. And so we have come to the end of the text. And I, the elder Dipankara Srijana, having seen it explained in Sutra and in other teachings, have made this concise explanation at the request of Changjubu. So all the Tibetan Buddhist traditions go through the teaching pertaining to 3 types of beings. As I explained earlier, according to the 3 Kadampa lineages teaching, and particularly this particular initiation comes within the highest Yoga Tantra. So whatever tantric practice we do, we have to do them in connection with the deity yoga practice in all 4 tantric sets of tantric teachings. According to the highest Yoga Tantra, we need to go through the practice of which accord with, in our meditation and visualization, the practice should accord with the 4 purities, 4 that we attain in the highest resultant state. Pure, but we need to use the basic clear light mind, and with that mind we should meditate on emptiness in the tantric teachings, and then cultivate the path whereby we visualize ourselves into a deity, and then go about with the practice of tantra. So all the 4 the major Buddhist traditions of Tibet have the same means, not using just the rough conceptual mind, but using this innate, spontaneously arisen or innate clear light or luminous mind. So whether we call it the Kundu Sangpo, the Samandabhadra, or Tathagata Garbha, what we actually aim at is uh, the nature truth body, or according to the Kala Chakra system, it's termed as the pure body and so forth. So that's our goal. And so, from within the state of emptiness, meditation on emptiness, we arise into a deity when we do deity yoga practice. And this particular initiation of Amitayus has come from Gebu Sawa Dagpo and so His Holiness will says that he will do this ritual, rather shorten it. So what is going through, we are going through is His Holiness is actually driving away any forces who might otherwise hinder this initiation of long life of Amitayus. So imagine all the obstacles have been driven away by sending away the evil forces, by making offering of the Dharma to them. Please repeat this request. Master, please bestow me this blessing. So the teaching was already given. And next is bodhicitta, taking bodhisattva vow. So whether you gain enlightenment, the highest enlightenment of Buddhahood or not, depends on whether you have bodhicitta or not. So with regard to this, if you can actually reflect on bodhicitta on a daily basis and acquaint your mind with it, as Maitreya says in his prayer, it actually averts the birth into the lower realms and leads one to higher births and also deathless state. And so to actually avoid and then non-virtuous actions, what we usually think about is because if we actually commit the non-virtuous actions, it would harm. We would actually suffer the consequences. But when we think in terms of bodhicitta, bodhisattva ideals, we actually think of others more than oneself, and therefore we think in terms we think of avoiding the negative actions because it harms others. So here, earlier, I went through the self-generation and have visualized myself transforming into the main deity. And also in the altar, we have Amitayus, which also was generated. And so, imagine the Buddha Shakyamuni in person, surrounded by the 8 close bodhisattvas, such as Maitreya, Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and so forth. And also the great Indian Mahasiddhas, the great realized saints, or such as Saraha and so forth, the 80 Mahasiddhas or 84 Mahasiddhas, and also the great bodhisattvas and masters of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. So in front of them all, visualizing them in the space before you, imagine taking this bodhisattva vow. If you have taken it before and kept them, the bodhisattva vows are enhanced. And if you are taking the bodhisattva vow for the first time, of course, it's going to be difficult to receive a fresh set of bodhisattva vows. So the first four lines that we are going to repeat show the aspirational bodhicitta. Please kneel on your right knee. If you have bad legs, then you have an exception. So imagine all the objects of refuge, Buddha, Shakyamuni, and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as said earlier, the great masters of India and Tibet. And so, for the benefit of oneself and others, happiness of oneself and others, and for the ultimate goal and temporary goal of happiness and ultimate goal of enlightenment, bodhicitta is the cause, and therefore feel a great joy within your heart, thinking that you have this opportunity to practice bodhicitta and cultivate bodhicitta within yourself. Even if the Buddha Shakyamuni himself were to come here in person, he would have nothing more to teach than the cultivation of bodhicitta. So think that you have Buddha nature within yourself, which means that you have the seed for bodhicitta, for Buddhahood, the enlightenment or omniscient state, and therefore determined to work for the sentient beings until the end of space. So living your life in altruism and helping others is the essence of this kind of human life. And so if you are able to live a life of altruism, then that serves the purpose of this life. If not, if you focus on yourself selfishly, then it doesn't serve the purpose of this life. And so far we have been rather focusing ourselves on with selfish motive, but from today, change that attitude and take this bodhisattva. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all mysteries individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all beings. I take to mind Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and the highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interest of oneself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delightful supreme practices of enlightenment. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. Please repeat for the second time. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all mysteries individually. I rejoice in the virtuous deeds of all beings. I take to mind Buddha's enlightenment. To the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly, I seek refuge until I reach enlightenment. To fulfill the interests of oneself and others, I shall generate the mind for awakening. Having generated the mind for highest awakening, I shall invite all beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delightful supreme practices of bodhisattvas, and may I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. So now at the end of the third repetition, when you say, may I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings, so those who have taken bodhisattva vows before and actually kept them without decline feel that they are enhanced. And of course, in this case, it's not possible to actually receive a full set of fresh set of bodhisattva vow, but make your determination to be able to engage in bodhisattva practices. I seek refuge in the three jewels. I confess all deeds, misdeeds individually. I rejoice in the virtuous deeds of all beings, to the Buddha, Dharma, and highest assembly. I seek refuge until enlightenment. I shall generate the mind of bodhicitta. Having generated the highest mind of bodhicitta, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall engage in the delightful practice of bodhisattvas. May I attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. Please say this. Today, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remains, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world, to dispel the misery of the world, to dispel the misery of the world. So these are the prayers, dedications. So having generated bodhicitta, you have taken bodhisattva vows. So, as Bodhisattva Charyavatara says, which intelligent person will feel despair to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one from bliss to bliss? So, as soon as you wake up in the morning, reflect on bodhicitta, and on a daily basis, throughout your day, often think about it, and also go to bed while reflecting on bodhicitta. So if you can do that, then gradually, even in dreams, you will be thinking about bodhicitta. And then through your familiarization with bodhicitta, you'll be able to you'll be able to gain, or cultivate bodhicitta slowly. In the beginning, of course, it may not come automatically or spontaneously, but you will need to put effort. And then, when you put effort, at some point, there will be bodhicitta growing within you. And when you put effort, whereas if you don't put effort, this will not arise. And then still, when you push yourself further in your practice, you'll be able to experience bodhicitta rather spontaneously. And as soon as you think about bodhicitta, this will happen. And so these are things, even with regard to the understanding of emptiness, and we can actually develop the insight through familiarization. So transformation of mind should happen through a broad understanding of the Dharma, the entire structure of Buddhism, and not just relying on something called pit instruction and not doing much study. And so this is how we should go about with the practice and the learning of the Dharma. Now, at the place where there is the longevity vase, imagine Amitayus, and those of you who have actually received full-fledged initiations before, you may be able to, visualize yourself transforming into Amitayus, whereas if you have not received any tantric initiation from tantric initiations, full-fledged initiations, not just blessings, then you may imagine Amitayus on your crown, sitting on your crown. And so we go through the mantra Om Swabhava Shuddha, which actually is about, shows meditation on emptiness. So Om Swabhava Shuddha means everything is empty. Sarva Dharma means everything, which refers to our psychophysical, so 5 psychophysical aggregates, and these two are empty of any inherent existence. So both the emptiness of persons and emptiness of other phenomena are shown by this mantra, and therefore meditate on emptiness. Meditate on emptiness of yourself, your 5 psychophysical aggregates. as in the 400 verses, it is said, what is dependently arisen has no autonomy, and because all this has no autonomy, therefore there is no self. So there is nothing whatever that exists independently, but things exist by way of dependence, and therefore within that meditation on emptiness, you imagine yourself, if you have received full-fledged initiations before, imagine yourself arising into from within the state of emptiness. You just don't think that your body is right away, just like that, transforming into Amitayus, but meditate on emptiness, and then from within that state of meditation on emptiness, you arise into Amitayus, or imagine Amitayus on your crown, if you have not received any full-fledged initiations. And then imagine the three letters Om, Ah, and Hum at your forehead, at your crown, throat, and heart, or at the crown, throat, and heart of Amitayus on your crown. So make your fervent request to the Master and Amitayus in the altar. With that fervent request or prayer, from the heart, from the free syllable, standing on the moon disk at the heart of Amitayus, there are the three the mantras of Amitayus. Rays of light are radiated, and they actually bring back any lifespan of life that you may have lost. In such a way that the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions are invoked with the rays of light emitted from the free syllable and the letters at the heart of Amitayus, and they actually dissolve into the free syllable and the mantras in Amitayus' heart, and then they come in the form of blessings to the disciples. In this way, any kind of lifespan that you may have lost are regained. And there may you have the Vidyadhara lifespan. And similarly, imagine that you are making a fervent request to the Guru and the deity, Amitayus. Guru also in the form of Amitayus. So from the mantras at the heart of the Guru and the Amitayus, rays of light go out. So since there are 5 elements within us, earth, water, fire, wind and space. So within these elements there are the gross ones as well as subtler and the subtlest. And so in the external world also there are these 5 elements. So because our body is made up of these 5 elements, likewise the external world also has these elements. Therefore there is a connection. And so the rays of light irradiating from the mantras of Amitayus actually draw into Amitayus all these 5 elements, the essence of the 5 elements, in the form of these 5 colors. space element in green, water, wind element is blue, and fire is red, water is white, and earth as yellow. And so these colors, or the essence of these five elements in these five colors, are drawn into Amitayus, and then they come forth to us in the form of these lights, and therefore actually strengthen the five elements within us, the subtle ones at the subtle level, and they in turn affect the grosser elements in us, these five elements. And therefore, your lifespan is called, extended. So you gained the immortality. May you live 100 years and see hundreds of Buddhas and so forth. And then next is the recuperation of your stamina or your power. So from the mantra at the heart of Amitayus, rays of light are radiated, and they invoke the powers of great deities, gods, such as Brahma and so forth, as well as great powerful nagas, as well as powerful people. They are actually drawn into Amitayus, and then they come in the form of nectar and light to us. Thereby, we gain power. So these powers of the great beings, the powerful beings who meditate or have bodhicitta and the insight, the emptiness, and also being powerful in the world and so forth, come down to us. And therefore, we are blessed with this lifespan equal to those of the Brahmas and so forth. Imagine blessings coming to you in the form of rays of light and nectar for power. Especially all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have generated bodhicitta, this altruistic intention for our sake. And they went through the paths and grounds of bodhisattvas and became enlightened, since they think about us.
See you again. Okay. Bye-bye. 제니, 내 차월 주무시. 왜 차월 주무시고? 와 제니네. 얘는 어떤 차도서는 아니 저 루도비를 뒤에 봐 개니. 아니 세정도 내가 세정도 내가 좀 왔어야 돼.
So we should cultivate our knowledge to gain more and more knowledge, increase our knowledge as well as lifespan and merit and so forth, so that we could live long for the benefit of other sentient beings as well. Next is dissolving the longevity deity into us, or lifespan. So as I utter the names of the masters of the lineage for this particular blessing, the the lineage masters are pleased greatly, and they dissolve one into the next. And then finally they come down to the Amitayus, and uh, imagine that Amitayus finally dissolve. When a replica of Amitayu comes forth and dissolves into you, thereby stabilizing your lifespan, and you gain life or immortality. So these are the names being mentioned: Majik Dube Gyamo and Kyogusawan Nadangmo, and then Rechungpa Doje Chakpa, and then Milarepa, and then Dagbo Raji, and so forth. So imagine these masters are pleased and they dissolve into the next one below them. So all these lineage masters all the lineage lamas dissolve into the root lama, one's primary lama. Here His Holiness primary lama, root lama for this initiation was Tata Rinpoche. And then Amitayus dissolve, come forth and duplicate and resolve into disciples. So imagine you are blessed with Amitayus dissolving into you. And then next is giving the longevity nectar. And then next is giving the pill for longevity, for long life, initiation. So next is uttering the auspiciousness based on the 6 perfections for increasing our lifespan. So on the basis of through the auspiciousness of the perfection of generosity, morality, perfection of generosity, perfection of morality, perfection of effort or joyous effort, perfection of concentration, perfection of patience and concentration and wisdom. Imagine that our lifespan is increased. So with this, the longevity initiation is completed. So this time, so having worked for many years, and also the sponsors and people who have actually worked and actually planned and designed this temple and institute. So you have actually become, the institution here has become a real center for preservation and promotion of the Buddha Dharma. As I said yesterday, we still need to see how we can make more developments. So it's very important to increase our realization of the Dharma as well as our learning and knowledge of the Dharma. And there are many lay people here, as I said before, earlier here. We need to study and learn the Buddha Dharma. And if you can actually do that, then you'll be better equipped to make transformation and have greater peace of mind, which will help in your in living a healthy and longer life, and you'll be happier. So otherwise, if you are not happy, then you'll not be happy with others. You'll have no friends, you'll have enemies more, and then you'll be unhealthy and cannot live long. And then the students, you are our future, our hope, and for the next generation of Tibetans, and therefore you need to actually feel dedicated to do study, and therefore you need it would be helpful to recite the mantra of Manju Shri Om Arapatsa Nadi for gaining more wisdom and intelligence. So I have also recited Om Arapatana Di mantra of Manjushri in my childhood, and I have seen the positive effect of it. So that's all I have to say. So in the thousands of years of history of our Tibet, we are at a very critical juncture in our history, and Tibetans inside Tibet have really been keeping up with the Tibetan spirit, strong Tibetan spirit. And today, even from amongst the Chinese, there are people who are taking interest in our Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture. And then around the world as well, there are people who are well educated, such as psychologists, scientists, and intellectuals, are taking interest in Buddhism. So we have the treasure with us, and we need to know how to actually keep it, preserve it, not by having some scripture in hand or anything like that, but through our study and learning the Buddha Dharma. So we dedicate this merit that we have gained in order for us to become enlightened, for the benefit of all sentient beings, to become liberated.